pall. They are really, really beautiful. We're going to head upstream along my favorite section of these falls, which is the Kahili Falls.
So can you hike to these, or is it helicopter only?
These are helicopter only because this whole valley actually is private property.
Oh, okay.
So this whole valley is owned by Alexander and Baldwin. They were really heavily involved in the sugar industry, but today they own real estate throughout the state of Hawaii. They own a lot of commercial real estate over on Oahu and Maui, and then they own large swaths of land on various islands, including Kauai. So unfortunately, this valley is off limits.
Wow.
Coming around here to the left, so those of us on this side of the aircraft can see too. Now working our way up above Kahili Falls puts us into the Kahili Bowl. Now throughout Kahili Bowl we can see this large number of standing dead trees here. So these are ohia. Ohia is a native hardwood to the island, and these ohia were killed off in 1992 when the island was hit by Hurricane Iniki. So Hurricane Iniki brought with it sustained winds of 145 miles an hour and gusts in excess of 225 miles an hour. Now, at that time, there was approximately 50,000 residents here, and that storm caused $3.6 billion in damages to property and infrastructure. Now that number, of course, doesn't even begin to touch the devastation that it caused to the forest here on the island. A lot of those trees that we were seeing back there in Kahili Bowl were in the order of about 200 years old. So this year actually marks the 30-year anniversary of that storm hitting the island. That's still going to take quite some time before the island has made a full recovery. Now, Hurricane Iniki hit Kauai 18 days after Hurricane Andrew hit Florida and the east coast of the U.S., so it really didn't make front page news for a lot of the country. It definitely had quite an impact on us here, though, as that storm, or as the eye of that hurricane went directly over the center of the island. So no one on the island was spared, but Southside got hit the hardest. Now from here, we are going to be continuing westbound. We're going to be moving out of Hanapepe Valley and into Olakele Canyon. Now, as we make this transition into Olakele Canyon, we're going to see a fairly dramatic shift in the landscape here. So as I mentioned, our prevailing weather patterns here result in the eastern and northern facing shores being very green and lush, and the west side is being a bit drier. So this is that transition point. Now, as we move into Olakele Canyon, we're actually moving into the oldest part of the entire state of Hawaii, geologically speaking.
Wow.
Yeah, so Olakele Canyon here gives us a glimpse into how these islands have been formed. So looking at the canyon faces here, we can see these horizontal lines extending across large sections of the canyon. Now these are exposed layers of lava rock. So when you talk about Hawaii, for a lot of people, one of the first things that comes to mind is volcanoes. And it is true that we are a volcanic island chain. Something that's not quite as commonly known is that this island chain is actually a single mountain range. This mountain range has been created over time by the movement of the tectonic plate and a fixed point below that tectonic plate known as the Hawaiian hotspot. As the tectonic plate has been shifting over the years, northwest, this hotspot, this point has been pushing magma up to the surface and creating in sort of a conveyor belt method this island chain or this mountain range. So the same point that today is fueling the volcano on the Big Island, the volcano of Kilauea, at one time was feeding the volcanoes that were forming the island of Kauai. Now Kauai is the oldest of the 8 major islands and was formed in 3 distinct periods of volcanic activity. The first period occurred approximately 5 million years ago. That initial period created the west side of the island where we are now and the northwest coast, the Nepali coast, which we'll see in a minute. At that time, this side was very even. It was an even plane working its way up to the caldera. Since then, tectonic plate has shifted away, causing the volcanoes here to initially go dormant and then extinct. And ever since then, water has been hard at work carving away at the landscape in the form of rain, creating streams and rivers. These streams and rivers have carved out the canyons that we see, the valleys, and left the ridges behind. So speaking of water, if we look over to our left, we can see the mouth of the Waimea River. Waimea River flows through the Waimea Canyon and empties out into the Pacific Ocean in the town of Waimea. So in Waimea town, you can catch the Waimea Canyon Road, which will take you up along the rim of the Waimea Canyon into the Waimea Canyon State Park and then on into the Kauai State Park. Along the route, there are numerous lookouts, different points where you can stop and check out the canyon from different angles, different vantage points. And then once you get up into Kauai, there's a huge number of hiking trails where you can explore different areas within the canyon itself, as well as the Alakai Swamp, the interior highland portion of the island, and even a number of ridges that will take you along the various ridges of the Nepali coastline. Now running into the main body of the Waimea Canyon are three spurs or ventricles. We're going to venture of Wailai, which is the first of these three spurs, and at the back of the Wailai Canyon we can already see this little waterfall here. So that waterfall is just the top in a whole series of waterfalls that have been carved out by this stream in creating this whole canyon here. So just on our left mostly we're going to be able to see this tic-tacking waterfall working its way up here. Now the Wailai stream is fed by the Alakai Swamp. Now the Alakai is a high elevation swamp. It is in fact the highest elevation swamp in the world with an average elevation of 4,000 feet above sea level. This area acts as something of a savings account for all of that rain, that water that's captured on the island. It then feeds into a number of the various streams and rivers and waterfalls around the island. As we move out of the Wailai stream bed here, we'll be able to see that the different geographic features that kind of confine the Alakai Swamp. So that would be the Waimea Canyon just behind us, the Nepali coastline, which is going to be off to our left, and then the Waialeale crater, which is off to our right. And we're going to see the front sides of all of these things, but just to kind of give you a sense of how this area is situated and kind of what it makes it up. So looking just off to our left, we can see kind of a globe up on the ridge line there. That is a radar tracking station for the U.S. Air Force, and it sits right up on top of Kauai Valley, which is the largest in the center valley along the Nepali coastline. And then it's a little, you can kind of make it out off to our right, is the backside of the Waialeale crater. So this whole upper area here makes up the Alakai Swamp. So from here we're crossing Kauai. This is the center, the deepest of the three spurs to the canyon. And then we're going to head back downstream through Po'omau, the third and final spur of the canyon.
Looks so much bigger than on a map.
Yeah.
Alright, so heading downstream through Po'omau, we're going to be making our way towards Waipo'o Falls. So within the canyon there is a very prominent waterfall. It's a three-tiered waterfall. The top section is just about 20 feet tall. Middle section is just over 100. And the lowest section is just over 400 feet tall. Lowest section just over 400 feet tall. It is visible from a number of the different lookouts. It is also the destination point for one of the more popular hiking trails up here. It's called the Canyon Trail. It's 1.8 miles long, so 3.6 miles round trip, and it'll take you right to the top of Waipo'o Falls. So as we exit Po'omau, we're going to come around to the right, and Waipo'o will be coming up on our right. So in just a moment, Waipo'o Falls is going to be just off to our right here. There we go. And from here we can already see the multitude of hikers that are out there enjoying the trail. So the tail end of the trail is just off to the left of the falls here. Following this open ridgeline.
Oh. I was glad we didn't have to walk.
Yeah.
That's why they call it the Grand Canyon of Hawaii.
Yeah, that's right, the Grand Canyon of the Pacific. So that name was coined by Mark Twain, who actually never even came to Kauai. Somebody must have explained it to him pretty well, though, because they definitely nailed it. I don't know if you guys have ever been to the Grand Canyon, but yeah, you have. Yeah, our little canyon here is minuscule by comparison, but it does have its own grandeur, and it is certainly a canyon. So.
This one seems to have pockets of hope with the green on it, whereas the Grand Canyon...
Pockets of hope?
Yeah. Grand Canyon's more like deserty death.
That's true. That is true. We do have a lot of green and lush areas around here, even on the dry side of our island. In just a moment, we're going to cross over the rim of the canyon, but before we do, let me point out just off our nose to the left here, that ridgeline with the single tree sticking out of it. That is the location of the main lookout for the canyon. Now from Waimea, it's going to take you about 20 minutes to get there. From Kauai, you're looking at about an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending on the time of day of the week. The road does continue on quite a ways beyond there. It works its way up to the Kokee Lodge, the Kokee Museum, a couple of lookouts for the Kauai Valley, as well as a number of different trailheads. Down along the coastline between here and the ocean is the PMRF, or the Pacific Missile Range Facility. Also known as Barking Sands, PMRF is a strategic defensive location for the U.S. military, as well as a missile testing facility. They sit pretty much smack dab in the middle of the longest uninterrupted stretch of white sandy beach in the entire state, which extends 12 miles from Keikaha, the last real town on the west side of the island, around the western point to Polihali, which is going to be the end of the road on the west side. Polihali then butts up into the Nepali coastline. 17 miles off the coast of Kauai is the island of Ni'ihau. So Ni'ihau is a privately owned island. It's sometimes referred to as the Forbidden Island. And like most private property, access to it is restricted. So I think that name kind of adds some mystique to it. Although it was purchased by the Robinson family for $2,000 back when you could buy an island for $2,000. So they've had it for quite some time. There are still a population of native Hawaiians that live out there. And there's some fairly complex politics that surround that whole thing. It is part of the county of Kauai, though. Coming up on our left here is eye booking facilities that is going to look something like something straight out of Star Wars. Is the Makaha Ridge Radar Center, and they're kind of the eyes and ears for PMRF. So they work in conjunction with the missile range and are technically part of it. Just a second here, we're going to be breaking out over the top of Nu'ololo Valley and the Nepali coastline. Now, Nepali itself translates to the cliffs, and this next section of the island really could not be more appropriately named, as it is 17 miles of truly rugged coastline comprised of sea level valleys separated by 3,000 and 4,000 foot cliffs. Throughout ancient Hawaii, people lived in all of these valleys. One cool thing about Nu'ololo, which is the first valley we're going to check out, is that there's still archaeological evidence that's clearly visible from the air, which is super cool. In just a moment, we're going to be coming around here to check out Nu'ololo Aina. So throughout the Pacific, wherever the Polynesians would travel, they would bring a number of staple plants with them, plants that were useful to them.
Wow.
Probably the most important plant to the Hawaiians is the taro plant, or kalo. similar to a potato in that it is a starch. However, it goes more closely akin to rice in kind of wet patties. So they would redirect stream water